You know Gray Bar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
Welcome into the latest episode of the Show Before the Show podcast, the official podcast of minor league baseball. It is like dumping snow in Denver, Colorado, and it has been for like the last 2 days. Like looking outside, you would think it was like we're in a Bob Ross painting. It's ridiculous. It's the first week of November, and we have like almost a foot of snow outside. So kind of a no more like, oh yeah, it's the off season environment to do a podcast from than this one. My name is Tyler Munn in what appears to be sunny New York City, Benjamin Hill and Sam Dykstra. I don't really have any intel on that, but I'm just judging by the fact that Sam's got a t-shirt on. It looks like there's sun coming in the window. That's fair.
I did not wear a jacket into work today.
Wow.
Yeah,
it is not that way here
in New York this week, which is nice on one hand and absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
Planet. That it is this warm in November, this early. It's also been a weird time to be sunny in New York City, and that's all I will say about that. But yeah, it's nice to hear that it's actually November somewhere.
Yeah, which is also weird because for the last however many Novembers, this has not happened. And so now I look outside and I'm like, oh, I remember what this was like back when I was a kid and we used to get like winter weather in fall. But yeah, it's, man, it is. We've had a lot of it. Before we kick off this week's episode of the Show Before the Show, we owe a big happy birthday to our very own Benjamin Hill, who turned 29 years old yesterday. Happy birthday, Ben.
Appreciate it. I had a great birthday. Took the day off, wandered around, went to some favorite spots in New York City. Very unseasonably warm, as Sam mentioned. But it was nice. It was very nice. And now I'm back at it, feeling refreshed, another year older, always another year wiser. And 29 years old. I remember that when I was a kid, just adults always joking like, oh, you're 29 again. You're 29. And I was always like, 29? That's so old. Why are you joking about being so old? But now I get it.
Same.
Yeah. I was born in the 70s, man. I mean, it was very late in the 70s. Don't get me wrong. But the 70s, nonetheless, the me decade, as it was called. And
I just imagine you reacting from the crib at Richard Nixon's resignation.
Hey, I'm not that old. I was born when a humble peanut farmer from Georgia was president.
I feel like we could have several decades renamed the me decade ever since then. But you went and got some very good food. I feel like that's the key to a good birthday is you had really good food.
Yeah, I mean, just went to a Vietnamese restaurant in Chinatown. Got some pho. You always want to call it pho, but I think it's pho.
It is pho.
Yeah. Place is called Pho Bang, B-A-N-G, Pho Bang. It's right there on Mott Street. Usually I go to either one of two places on Baxter, and the one I used to go to on Center is closed, Nha Trang. But there's another Nha Trang on Baxter. Anyway, go to Vietnamese restaurants in Chinatown. They're good places. I really like Vietnamese food.
Big fan. Yeah, I'm a big fan. Well, big happy birthday to Ben and to all of you. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show. You can, of course, get in touch. Podcast at MILB.com. We've got some, really like kind of last throws of on-field stuff for affiliated ball here in 2024 that we're going to talk about coming up here in a little bit as the Arizona Fall League begins to reach its final stages. But before we get to all of that, it is time to talk a little business of baseball with Benjamin Hill himself. And we've got a story that is, I guess, sort of a formality story, but also kind of a cool reinvention story. The AA Southern League's Chicago Cubs affiliate, the Tennessee Smokies, are no more, at least in that name, because they are now known as the Knoxville Smokies as they move into a new ballpark in 2025. Ben, this was not a like a huge redesign or rebrand or anything like that. There is kind of an updated look, which I really like. The Smokies, their identity is great. I really like the Smokies identity. But tell us about, like I said, a minor change, but in some ways a huge change for the Smokies.
Yeah, I mean, a huge change is less so aesthetically and more so that they are indeed going back to Knoxville. This is a franchise that originated in Knoxville. Minor League Baseball in Knoxville goes back well over 100 years. Going back to the 20s, there was a team in Knoxville almost every year, all the way up until 2000 when the Knoxville Smokies, and they were called the Knoxville Smokies from 1993 to 1999, moved to Tennessee. Well, no, they were in Tennessee. They moved to Kodak, Tennessee, near Gatlinburg, near Pigeon Forge, near Sevierville, Sevier County. And they just became the Tennessee Smokies. And they kept the Tennessee Smokies name all the way through their time in Kodak, Tennessee, which was 2000 through 24. In 2015, they did not rebrand, but they got new logos that were designed by Dan Simon, Studio Simon, who we talked about yesterday, or not yesterday, but last week in regards to him designing the Oklahoma City Comets identity. And this new look is really just a continuation of what the team has been doing name-wise for decades and logo-wise for the last 10 years. It looks very similar. There's some minor tweaks. I noticed in the primary logo when it said Tennessee, that was in block script. And now with Knoxville, it's in a white cursive script. But really, this is just swapping out, for all intents and purposes, the main thing here is swapping out Tennessee with Knoxville, because this team is back in Knoxville for the first time since 1999. I mean, where they relocated in Kodak is only about 20 miles roughly east of Knoxville. So they still were drawing a lot of their fan base from Knoxville and Knoxville County, even while playing as the Tennessee Smokies in Kodak. But now they're going back. It's a downtown ballpark. Was it Covenant Health Ballpark, I believe it's called. It's in downtown Knoxville. Technically a neighborhood I think that is called Old Downtown. Randy Boyd, the Smokies owner, he already owns some land and property down there as it is, so it's part of a much larger development the way these things go. There's going to be an apartment complex overlooking the ballpark, where we'll see that thing we've seen at other ballparks where people can have the porches of their apartments look onto the field. Restaurants, retail space, a condo building, in addition to the apartment complex, I believe, condos and apartments. So it's going to be a whole live, work, play, as they say, often in the development world, with what's going up around there. And baseball is back in Knoxville proper for the first time in 25 years. And it'll be cool to check that out. And as it turns out, there's one more game at Smoky Stadium. It's actually today, for the day the podcast comes out on Friday, November 8th. It's the Tennessee Volunteers annual Orange and White World Series game. But it's just one game, but it's just like an intra-squad scrimmage game. And that'll be the last game in Smokies ballpark history, the ballpark in Smokies in Kodak, Tennessee. Well, I don't want to say the last in history because I don't know exactly what the usage of that ballpark is going to be going forward. But certainly the last of this era, run by the Smokies game day staff. And the front office is still operating out of that ballpark while they wait for the new ballpark to be built. And good timing for them. And, I think they planned it this way, but to now announce that they're the Knoxville Smokies officially have a tweaked look. I don't think it's incorporated in the uniforms, but some of their merchandise has images incorporating the Knoxville Sun Sphere, which is a building built for the World's Fair, I believe, in 1982.
Which, of course, Ben and I know just from the Simpsons episode where they go to the Sun Sphere in search of the Sun Sphere. That was my first exposure to the Sun Sphere. I'm assuming it was the same for you.
100%. And the Henley Bridge is in the like merchandise type tertiary logos. So they do have some secondary or tertiary marks, referencing Knoxville landmarks. We might see those incorporated more down the line. But big story. Tennessee Smokies, Kodak, Tennessee, officially no longer. Now we are in the Knoxville Smokies era. Covenant Health Ballpark opening officially on April 15th, when the Knoxville Smokies kick off their season at home. So new era. Looking forward to checking it out. They're a Cubs affiliate. I was talking to the team's president. He said, expect a Wrigley Field type vibe. I think also just in terms of the way they built up the stadium with a lot of other buildings around it, making you feel part of a larger area. Because you didn't necessarily feel that way in Kodak, Tennessee. It was a little bit more, I don't want to say remote. I mean, it was right near a gigantic Bass Pro Shop and very close to all the tourist attractions.
Very close to a Buc-ee's.
Yeah, very close to a Buc-ee's. But yes, it wasn't, when you were in that ballpark, you did not feel surrounded by other development, bars, restaurants, and everything. In and of itself, it was a slight remove. And not that that's a bad thing, but now we're going back to the city, building up around it, new era.
It has the feel, having been to the stadium, or at least the grounds on which they're building the stadium. They said Wrigley Field, and obviously that's a good comp for any Cubs affiliate. That's what they want their fans to feel. But it also just fit in so much with that Camden Yards mold that I think a lot of teams are trying to take right now, in terms of, hey, this feels very lived in a downtown area. It's very walkable around the place, or will be once construction is finished. You mentioned the neighborhood it'll be in Old City. I mean, that's eminently walkable in its own right, and adding this in there will be huge for that area. One thing I want to ask you about, Ben, is this switch from Tennessee, which represents an entire state, obviously, to Knoxville, which is a much more specific region. I feel like there was a trend going the other way, where teams wanted to be more broad, to bring in as many fans as possible. Like if you lived in West Tennessee, you could wear a Tennessee Smokies hat. And maybe now, if you live in Memphis, you're not going to feel more comfortable wearing a Knoxville hat. How do you kind of do that, and going smaller to something much more specific instead of the broad?
I mean, I think in this case, it makes sense, especially because Tennessee, when you call the Tennessee Smokies, I understand why they did that, because they were no longer had a really you're not going to necessarily call yourself the Kodak Tennessees, because people don't really know that as well, or so it kind of made sense just to, and they weren't playing in Knoxville proper anymore, so they weren't going to do that, so they said, okay, Tennessee. But when you think Tennessee, you'd think Nashville first and foremost, like the Tennessee Titans. I think it works when you can really claim the state, at least in terms of the sport you're playing. Mississippi Braves, that kind of made sense, especially before the rival, the Biloxi Shuckers, because that was for a time the only affiliated minor league team in the entire state. But minor league baseball, it's a local business, so I think on the whole it makes more sense to to really represent your city when you are in a city. But then, you can be a little bit too small in your market where you want to expand outward. And that might not be the whole state that you're claiming, but, a larger region, like, as opposed to the Springdale Naturals, you have the Northwest Arkansas Naturals. They're not claiming the whole state, because the Arkansas Travelers already did that.
Yeah.
But, a larger region, or, they're no longer in the affiliated landscape, but the Down East Wood Ducks, because Kinston, is just so small, they wanted to project something a little bit beyond such a small town. But
or Hudson Valley
Renegades. Yeah, they're not the Wappingers Falls,
right.
The Dutchess County Renegades. Yeah, Hudson Valley, just incorporates a larger area. So I think it's a case by case basis. Sometimes you can see why they do it and it makes sense. Other times you're like, why did they do that? And sometimes there's a historical precedent that they just don't want to change. Sometimes it just might be a larger philosophy. But I think Knoxville makes sense, especially when you're opening a ballpark in the heart of Knoxville. And, in talking to the team president, Chris Allen, he said, hey, I'd be lying if I said we didn't have discussions about a full rebrand, because that would, sell more merchandise and also maybe create a little bit more of a splash. But ultimately, there was just so much history with the Smokies name, in Knoxville, because they were the Knoxville Smokies starting in 1993 through 99, but that marked the continuation or the return of the Smokies name that was from like the 1920s to the 1960s. So there's a ton of 1925 to 1967 was the original Knoxville Smokies. Then that name came back in 1993. Then they moved to Tennessee, and now they're keeping it for the return to Knoxville. So a lot of history there, and there's something to be said for that. And Smokey the Bear, they're a Cubs affiliate. There's some nice connections.
Yeah, there's one other thing that I wonder if this impacted their decision making at all, is that you go to Knoxville. Knoxville is where the University of Tennessee is based, or its flagship campus. Is it weird to be another Tennessee sports team in the home of the University of Tennessee? Like they're not the University of Tennessee Knoxville, at least in sporting terms. Tyler, you obviously are much more involved in college sports than Ben or I am, but so I don't know if you have any insight into that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't really thought about that. I mean, like, yeah, you think of, the Mocs in Chattanooga. That's the University of Tennessee Chattanooga Mocs. Yeah, you wouldn't think about it that way in Knoxville because that is the main campus of the university. That is true. I mean, I do think especially like Ben said, the historical precedent of already having had this name at one time probably is the thing that makes it more of a no-brainer. But that is an interesting element to it that you might not want to slap the name Tennessee on something in a city that is known for Tennessee being the moniker for its sports teams. Now, obviously, it's a little bit different with the Titans because you're a professional level organization. You're one of the major four sports, but that is interesting. That's a thing that I had not really thought about, but that is interesting.
Yeah, it seems like the market's saturated with Tennessee in that specific city.
Knoxville is like a cool. That's a cool.
If you can pop a little bit more with Knoxville.
Knoxville. That's a very cool
Knoxville
town.
Baseball team.
Remember, we're parked under the Sun Sphere. Sun Sphere, you mean Wig Sphere. So you can read that story at MILB.com. And Ben's got another one, and one that is very close to the hearts of everybody who loves a great baseball story. And that is about a minor league lifer who is not really a lifer anymore because he was a big leaguer. And it was a very cool moment in 2023 when longtime minor leaguer Drew Maggi made his major league debut at 34 years old, or nearly 34 years old at that time. Played in 3 games for the Pittsburgh Pirates, got a couple of hits. Drew Maggi, awesome guy. Very selfishly, I've cheered for him for a long time because he was on the 2012 Altoona Curve team that I worked with. Was super great guy then. I saw him again 7 years later when he was playing for Italy in the Olympic qualifiers in 2019. And Drew Maggi is one of those guys who, the stories are becoming, I think, fewer and fewer of guys who last for a decade plus in the minor leagues and then make it happen by reaching the big leagues. But there's life after that for Drew Maggi, and it's something that, the average fan probably sees like, oh, awesome, this guy made the big leagues. That's cool. That's the culmination of his dream. But he's still in baseball, and Ben got a chance to talk to him late this season.
Yeah, this was one of my road trip stories that, one, due to having just such a glut of content from my road trips, and then 2, I wrote this story, last month, about a month ago, but then we kind of held it for after the playoffs, just to have some good, fresh post everything baseball content, post everything except, of course, the Arizona Fall League, which we shall never forget.
Yeah. And other winter leagues
Yeah. There's never no baseball, but yeah. So this story took a little time to come out, but no matter. It's about Drew Maggi's 2024 season because, like Tyler said, I mean, he became a national feel-good news story in April of 2023 when he got called up to the Pittsburgh Pirates at the age of 33. Yeah, less than a month before turning 34. And then you just might have been, that's awesome. He did it. Good for that dude, and forgot about him. So I thought it was interesting to talk to him, and I talked to him in Toledo because he was playing for the Toledo Mud Hens. Just about like, hey man, you're still out there, you're still going. So I've written a recap essentially of his baseball life since that, his historic or very memorable call up. And that's the thing. He didn't expect, to get called up and can then start a major league career. I mean, he knew his time up there was short. But nonetheless, it was a come down because after he got demoted to Altoona, which, as Tyler mentioned, when he was the broadcaster, Drew Maggi played for the Altoona Curve AA in 2012 to 2014. Then he eventually left the Pirates organization, bounced around through several others, made it back to the Pirates organization, played for them, in Altoona again, played for them in AAA Indianapolis, makes it to the Pirates, and then goes back to Altoona. And he was just kind of like, look, nothing against Altoona, but I think he was struggling. It was the year 2024, and he was back he made it to the major leagues, and he was back in the same minor league place he played in 2012 through 2014. He was like, the last time I was here, Tyler Maughan was the broadcaster. That dude's out there in like Taipei now. What am I doing in Altoona?
Like, man, have you seen how old that guy got? I can't possibly be back here in Altoona.
Yeah, exactly.
Tyler Maughan looks like he's 97 years old.
Exactly. Direct quote. I didn't include it in the story, but no, in all seriousness, So he didn't do well the rest of 2023 after that, just surreal, epic call up. Got released during the season by the Pirates. Then was kind of out of baseball as the 2023 season ended. And he was saying, like, look, I could still basically say I went out on top. My last season, I made the major leagues, at the age of 33. He just couldn't stay away. And while he didn't make a team in 2024, he visited the Brewers camp. Pat Murphy was his coach in college, so he was trying to like work some connections there. Nothing panned out. He did get calls from various independent teams, and he went to the Staten Island Ferry Hawks, who play in the ballpark where the Staten Island Yankees, the New York Penn League, used to play. And that was his first time for such a long career, his first time out of affiliated ball. And, he said he liked it just because the culture was different and it wasn't guys just constantly thinking about getting called up or moved up or all the day-to-day maneuvering and plotting and frustrations that occur within this context of a larger farm system. Kind of felt free from that. And he's like, Pablo Sandoval's giving speeches in the locker room because Pablo Sandoval was on the team. That's indie ball for you. Mark Minicozzi was the manager. I knew him from my playing days. I love that guy, a grinder like me. So he was back in the game and then got a call from the Tigers, needed some infield depth. And again, that was through connections that he made through the years. Because that's the thing, when you play so long, you start to know people. And signed with the Tigers in about midway through the season and spent the rest of the season with the AAA Toledo Mud Hens. And, did pretty well there, steady, unspectacular veteran. And, he was saying, that's something about him now is like, he didn't just like inspire fans when he got his call up, but like, he's like a psychological motivator for other players who might be in AAA, who might be up and down, or might have never made it. He is like a living embodiment of like, don't quit. You could possibly still do it. You could have that story like me. And now he's a free agent again. And whether he decides to come back or finally retire, I don't know. We'll find out. But just thought it was good to provide an update on a minor league grinder who kept on going in 2024 and whose career at this time is not over. And when he does finally decide to hang it up, who knows what he'll decide to do. But coaching seems like he would have offers. He would stay. I think he'd be able to stay in the game if he wants to. So Drew Maggi still going.
And he's the type of guy who makes the perfect coach, because he's seen everything there is to see on a baseball field. He's worked through, every possible type of adversity in a career. There is not anybody who you're going to know in your baseball life who has seen or accomplished more than Drew Maggi, including reaching the big leagues. And, if he doesn't want his playing days to be done, I hope somebody signs him. And I hope he is a contributor to a team, hopefully at the big league level, but wherever he can continue to get the work. But yeah, if that day does come and Drew Maggi decides like, okay, maybe I want to take a chance on being a coach. Yeah, not a whole lot of guys out there who are going to be better suited for something like that than Drew Maggi. It's a great story. It's up at MILB.com right now, and you can read all of the latest and greatest from Benjamin Hill there. And send Ben your birthday wishes as well. All of your best birthday wishes for our fearless leader, Benjamin Hill, who you can find on social media at Ben's Biz on Twitter, at the Ben's Biz on Instagram. And thanks, Ben.
Hey, thank you. Always a pleasure to chat about the things I'm working on in my life and about my personal life as well as I get one more year older. Just that much more. I was going to say closer to death, but that's not what it is. I mean, it is what it is, but just more mature, more wise.
Feels like we're all a little closer. Am I right?
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's just the nature of living.
Sam and I are back to talk about some Arizona Fall League stuff after the break, and then Ben rejoins us as we name that dude coming up a little while later. The Arizona Fall League is headed to its final couple of weeks, and really its final week now as the Fall Stars game arrives coming up this weekend. And prior to that, the AFL Home Run Derby, which will pit the top power hitters in the league against one another in an all-star style event set for this Friday, which is, of course, tomorrow, since we're recording on Thursday the 7th. So Friday the 8th, 8:30 Eastern time. 6-5. I don't remember which one they're on in Arizona right now. They don't do daylight savings, which means they don't change their calendars. But does that mean that they're on what was previously daylight savings?
I don't remember. That I always get confused. But I know right now they are 2 hours behind East Coast time.
Oh, okay. So they're on Mountain Time right now. Okay, so 6:30 Mountain Time. There you go. 6:30 Arizona time. coming up on Friday. Sam, give us the breakdown of what we're going to see in the home run derby this year. We've got a good field of power hitters. We also have the reigning home run derby champion from 2023, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's Rosario, a Twins prospect who is actually fighting for a 40-man spot in the Minnesota system. I don't want to say as we speak, but like that's one of the goals of sending him back to the fall league this year. So he gets to defend his title this year in a field that's pretty loaded. I mean, you look at who's involved here. Jack Caglione is the big name pick in this year's draft, somebody who hit 60 plus homers in his final 2 years with the University of Florida. He's really caught fire of late too, for surprise. When I saw him in weeks 2 and 3, he just looked like a guy who had been tired. He had played a full spring at Florida. He had played a couple weeks at high A Quad Cities. So you kind of thought, all right, this is getting to the end of the road. Royals surprised a lot of folks in the industry by sending him to the fall league, getting him extra work at a time when it felt like he didn't really need it. But they have said over and over and over again, we just want him getting used to playing in a pro style environment. So he looked tired at the beginning, but he's finishing strong. He's up to 4 homers now, for surprise. 3 of those have been hit at 110 plus miles per hour of exit velocity. So you put him in a home run derby where it's not competitive pitches that he's seeing, it's drivable pitches over and over and over again. I think he has to be the favorite right now, just because of that pure power. It might be the best in the fall league completely. Brock Wilken of the Milwaukee Brewers, somebody who set the ACC record and Wake Forest record for home runs a year ago, coming out of the Demon Deacons program, first round pick of the Milwaukee Brewers. He's endured a rough first full season, mostly at AA Biloxi, got hit in the face very early on, and seemed maybe a little skittish coming back from that. His fall league time hasn't been great, but again, you put him in the derby and just have him swing for the fences. I think that could really work. Also in the American League, we got Peyton Williams of the Toronto Blue Jays system. He's been playing for Scottsdale. He hit a homer at 453 feet. That's the 4th longest in an AFL game this fall. He went deep 11 times in 77 games at High A Vancouver during the regular season. Talking about Royals prospects, we also have Carter Jensen, who's a ranked prospect for the Kansas City Royals. He's in their top 5 right now. I really like him as a catcher. They have a pretty loaded system, obviously, in catchers with Blake Mitchell, the 2023 first rounder, and everybody's kind of jockeying to beat out each other to be the future of the catching position, with Salvador Perez probably winding down. Freddie Fermin got a lot of reps behind the plate this year as well. But Carter Jensen, always been a supremely patient hitter, but now he's getting a little bit more aggressive earlier in the counts. That's allowing him to drive the ball better. I'll be interested to see how he plays up in a derby situation. Moises Ballesteros, another top 100 prospect of the Chicago Cubs. He's been hit over power, but I've seen him drive a lot of balls in the fall league. He'll be playing in Mesa. This game is at Sloan Park. He's familiar with that stadium, not only from his time with the Solar Sox, but also it is the Cubs spring training facility. So maybe he'll earn a few points for feeling at home. Jose Preseño, somebody we've talked about a lot on this show, dealt with a knee injury during the season that only topped out at single A, but he's been maybe the most impressive hitter in the fall league, despite only being 20 years old. He's consistently hit rockets all over the park, across the desert, across the valley. So again, get him in a situation where he can just focus on hitting home runs. I think he could give Caglione a run for his money. And then Garrett Martin of the New York Yankees system rounds out our field of 8. Garrett Martin, somebody who has also hit a 453-foot homer like Williams did. He went deep 4 times in his first 15 games for Salt River, which put him in a tie with Caleb Durbin of the Salt River Rafters and New York Yankees. So the same systems there. So it should be a lot of power on display Friday night. We'll see how things go, but get Jack Caglione in this. I think there are going to be a lot of eyes on him, a lot of eyes on Bersenio, and maybe one of these other guys kind of breaks through and shows like, hey, if we can beat out Jack Caglione in the home run derby, we have to be treated for real.
All right, Sam. Well, coming up this weekend, the Arizona Fall League's Fall Stars game, which used to be known as the Rising Stars game. First, it was Fall Stars. Then it was Rising Stars. Now it's back to Fall Stars. Fall Stars, the far better name. Rising Stars is a great name, but Fall Star, yeah, I mean, it just like, come on, it's so much better. That's a completely pointless tangent. Give us the exciting pieces of the All-Star rosters for this year. Obviously, there are a lot of them, but yeah, would love to hear some of the headliners.
Yeah, so this is done under an AL NL format. So it's not, for a time it was East versus West in the Valley. But I think this is, you want this to be a fan event. You want people to understand it a little bit easier if they're watching from home, because this game will be broadcast on MLB Network. You'll be streaming on MLB.com and the MLB app. So tons of ways to tune into this game on Saturday. But when you look at the rosters, they're more loaded with hitters. This is in line with what the fall league has been all year round so far. I mean, we're just about to close out week 5. The hitters have been much better than the pitchers. Somebody like Andrew Painter, who has been the standout pitching prospect in the league, is not in this game because he doesn't line up pitching wise. I mean, they're not going to throw him out there, especially coming off Tommy John, just to get his name on a roster. If he's not going to pitch, they're not having him there. One guy I will point out on the NL side for pitchers is Eric Swan. I just did a MLB Pipeline pitching lab with Eric Swan because he's been one of the most talked about names in the fall league. It's a fastball that can touch 101. He's touched, I think, 99.4 in the fall league so far, but he can crank it up to triple digits. He's got a tighter slider in the upper 80s. He's got a sweeper in the low 80s. He has something of a curveball. He hasn't really broken it out so much because he hasn't needed it. He has a changeup in the low 90s, which still has separation off that fastball. So if he gets in this game, I could see him opening it up and really trying to hit triple digits in an environment like this. Luis May of the Cincinnati Reds has hit triple digits multiple times, easily the best velo in the entire fall league. I saw him touch 102 during my time there. He has the makings of a potential closer. He just at times has 30 control on the 20 to 80 scale. It's not been great. He's looked much better so far in the AFL. So if he can carry that into the Fall Stars game on Saturday, he'll be one of the standout pitchers for sure. But like I said, it's mostly about the bats here. Jack Caglione did make it, like we just talked about. Carter Jensen's there. Jose Briseño will be there. He'll be joined by Tyrone Lorenzo, his catcher, who I'm really excited about. He's somebody who, we haven't formulated our top 100 reveal yet for the 2025 preseason, but I feel pretty comfortable saying he's going to be on there somewhere. Absolutely tore the cover off the ball after coming over from the Dodgers and the Jack Flaherty deal at the trade deadline. That's continued in the fall league, showed really good power. He is a switch hitter. He has a much better chance at sticking behind the plate than Briseño does. Briseño hasn't even played catcher in the fall league. Some scouts really like his throwing motion and his throwing arm, and that's huge in the modern game with guys running all over the place. So Tyrone Lorenzo, keep an eye on him. Denzel Clark, Trey Morgan, 2 big-time performers in the fall league so far. Trey Morgan playing left field exclusively for Mesa. That's interesting because he's a 70-grade defender at first base, but they want to get him a little bit more versatility. It's been a little rough at times. I've seen him lose the ball in the lights or in the sun sometimes, but he's still pretty athletic for left field. And I think if they can move him in left and keep Xavier Isaac at first base, that's something really for the Rays to contemplate. And if you're watching at home, you might know Trey Morgan from his LSU days, but really hone in on his approach. He's somebody who will not chase very often and has a great 2-strike approach. He is not afraid of just getting bat on ball with 2 strikes. And it's kind of an old school method for him. He really chokes up on the bat. He gets wide in his stance. Tristan Cassis is somebody who's done that in recent years, another first base prospect, but keep an eye on Trey Morgan on that AL side. On the NL side, Moises Ballesteros, who we've already mentioned, he will be in at catcher on the NL. Joining that catching group will be Ethan Salas, somebody we've talked about a lot on this show and elsewhere. A really down year for him this year at High A Fort Wayne, but he only turned 18 in June. And so, you always wanted to keep that in your back pocket of like, yeah, he's been pushed aggressively. And sometimes this happens. You want guys continually going up. And that's what it's looked like in the fall league. He's looked very relaxed at the plate. He's looked like his usual advanced defensive self behind the plate. He's been doubles machine so far for Peoria. So if anything, I think he's kind of buoyed his prospect stock, if you were supremely worried about him coming into the fall, I'm not as worried about him now. I think he's still a top 25 prospect in baseball. So that's been huge. Edwin Arroyo will be in this game. He's a shortstop prospect after missing out basically he missed the entire regular season. He had a shoulder injury in spring, had surgery, didn't play at all during the regular season. Now he's back, another top 100 name for the NL. Has looked really good at shortstop. The power is not really fully there for him, but for a guy who missed so much time, he's looked relatively good at the plate to me. He's another switch hitter. So keep an eye on him if he starts at shortstop. Thomas Ajacey of the St. Louis Cardinals is the league leader, I believe, right now in average and OBP, which normally wouldn't come as a huge shock because he's somebody who has major league experience. He's one of those rare types that went from the majors to the AFL. When I talked to him down there in Glendale, he said he knew he was going to the fall league before he found out about the majors. So this was something that's been in the works for a while, and they really wanted him to hone in on having an approach at the plate. He's always been see ball, hit ball. He's been aggressive. He chases a lot, but it's because he knows he can put bat on ball no matter where it is. That's great, and that's a cool skill to have. But you're an even better hitter if you really hone in on the zone and hone in on balls you can drive and not just keeping your strikeouts down and putting the ball in play. That's how you don't get walks. That's how your on base suffers. So things have really turned around for Thomas Ajacey, and he's played a lot of second base. That's a little bit of an open question mark right now for the Cardinals, and I think he's kind of slotting himself into that opening day spot for St. Louis going into next year. I don't know if he's quite still a top 100 prospect. I would like to see this aggression or this non-aggression last longer than just the fall league and tear up some of these lower level pitching, but Thomas Ajacey definitely put himself back on the map there. And then one guy I'll highlight from the outfield group for the NL is Zaire Hope, who caught a lot of attention this year for what he's been doing in the fall league. He put up really good data in the California league, but like that was over a smaller sample. He didn't get a full year due to injuries. But the guy hits the ball hard. He's a really good runner. He can play a capable center field. I know there's some people who think he'll probably have to move to a corner as he slows down as he ages, but I mean, he's as close to a five-tool talent as I've seen in the fall league. So he'll really get to be put in a showcase game like this in the Fall Stars is a huge opportunity for him and a reward for what he's put in so far in Glendale. And the fact that he had only played in the Cal League, has no high A experience yet, and has performed really well is a testament to him and somebody who could very well push for the top 100 again when we update things in January.
Sam, because of travel, we're going to be off next week. We touched on this in the last segment, which you all will hear momentarily. But that means that we're going to be away when the Arizona Fall League reaches its final coming up in a couple of weekends. Surprise right now pacing the league at 16-7, Salt River at 14-11, 3 games back. Everybody else is in the hunt with the exception of Peoria, which is the only team that has been eliminated. And again, that's as of the end of the day on November 6th. But Glendale is just a game back of Salt River. So is Mesa. Scottsdale still kind of in the hunt, although the elimination number for the Scottsdale Scorpions is 1. But it's a fun time of year. It's cool with the fall league because these guys get to go to Arizona. They get this work in, they finish it off with a championship game, and then essentially it's the holidays, and it's a little bit of time to rest for some of these guys before they get set for spring training next year. But this is shaping up to be a really good finish among essentially, I mean, really the top 4 teams in the league who are all above 500, but the top 5 are still alive right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really cool situation because everybody I talk to in the fall league, every player, every coach who's working there, they're always saying like, hey, this is an opportunity to work with other guys from other organizations. You know, we're surrounded by our guys year round, and that's great. And those are the guys you hope to win a World Series title with someday. But the fall league is about opening your eyes to other opportunities and hearing from other coaches and hearing from other strategies, seeing what latches on. Maybe that's something you take to your organization and other players, maybe not. But these are bonds that like last a lifetime. If it's Surprise, if it's Salt River, Glendale, whoever wins the AFL championship, those guys will like cross paths someday in the majors. You know, they'll like be stretching out in Wrigley Field and like, hey man, it's great to see you. Remember that Surprise team that we went on a run with? Yeah, it's great to see you. That was, and I picked up this grip from you at that time. Or, hey, I still think of you every time I get in the box and put my feet a certain way. And I got that from you. So it seems a little meaningless. Like, oh, what's the point? Like, this is a development league. This is a showcase league. That championship at the end doesn't really matter. But to these guys, it does. Like, imagine if you're Jack Caglione. You mentioned surprise right now, leading the league 16-7 after this entire season and everything you've gone through to end it with a championship. Like, that's what Kansas City dreams of.
Yeah.
They want these guys feeling winning now. And all the other orgs that are on that surprise team. We'll see how things shake out in a week. I'm sure we'll talk about it when we're back. But yeah, this does mean something. Don't get it twisted.
So you can go to MLB.com/Arizona-fall-league for all the AFL stuff. And coming up, Josh Jackson stops by. We haven't heard from Josh in a couple of weeks, but Ghost of the Miners makes its triumphant return next.
We interrupt this podcast to bring you another thrilling edition of Ghosts of the Miners. Now, here's your correspondent and host, Joshua Jackson.
Welcome back to Ghosts of the Miners, in which all of you out there in Radioland must identify the legitimate historical ball club or player hiding amidst the fraudulent pair. One once took a shine to the middle of the diamond. Under scrutiny, the others immediately lose their luster. In the last segment, I asked you which of the following minor league baseball players did at one time exist. A. Arnie Longford. B. Harry Wormwood. C. Philodendron. You pulled the right answer out of the woodwork if you picked B. Harry Wormwood, who pitched in the minor leagues for 7 seasons in the early 20th century. Here's the dirt on Wormwood. He always tried to wriggle his way out of trouble until he got the hook. Although the native of the Maine town of Auburn had hitters seeing red for years, it was with one particular outing that Wormwood inched out of the obscurity of the long past and into the hardback history books. Wormwood, whose name is the same as that of the plant from which absinthe is made, and whence vermouth, from the German Vermut, gets its name, kept hitters on their tipsy toes while working with sober judgment on their moon. Working with sober judgment on the mound. He played in the semi-pro outsider Maine Trolley League, starring in every position but catcher before making his official professional debut with the 1907 Worcester Busters of the New England League. There, as a pitcher, Harry held his own and then some, leading the loop with a .769 winning percentage and helping the Busters break through to a pennant. He was clearly on an upward trajectory even as Wormwood went southward to the Fall River Club in 1908, reporting to the team as a newly married man after wedding his Maine sweetheart from Auburn in the offseason. And he demonstrated commitment to his new club as well, refusing to fall off Fall River's mound straight through the 1912 season. Although the New England League of the era had other stars, Luis Sockalexis had started out on the circuit in 1895 and was back in 05, and no less a hitter than Nat Pajaway had made his debut with Fall River in 1896, you'd have to say that on one June afternoon in 1910, the whole league, if not the whole world, was absent a better pitcher than Wormwood. Facing his old team, the Worcester Busters, who now had the league's leading run scorer in the person of Billy Page, Wormwood pitched a no-hitter of 11 innings, ultimately lifting Fall River to a 1-0 victory. The long no-hitter earned ink in papers as widely read and as far away as the New York Times, and many ran items calling it a new record for baseball in the eastern U.S. Wormwood went home to Maine for the 1913 campaign, pitching for once big leaguer and future Hall of Famer Hugh Duffy of the Portland Duffs. In 14, he argued in favor of the successful campaign to bring a New England League team to Lewiston, but Wormwood himself was done pitching, at least in officially recognized minor league ball. That summer, he made local papers for dazzling both on the bump and in the box for a semi-pro team off the coast in Belfast. His name lives on today as the pitcher shares it with the father of the titular character of the Roald Dahl classic novel Matilda. And that's how Harry Wormwood never wore out. Now, on to the question for next time. Which of these teams had quite the view in the minors of yesteryear? A. The High Point Pointers. B. The Town Bluff Bluffers. C. C, the Red Cliff Cliffhangers. Want to know the answer? Look up. But for now, you'll have to excuse me. My producer Ben Hill is looking for fall foliage, and he won't leave me alone.
Big thanks to Joshua Jackson for swinging by this week's episode of the show before the show. Been a little while since we heard from Josh, or maybe it's just felt that way, because we so dearly love his Ghost of the Miners content. And big thanks to Josh for stopping by. And that brings us to our final segment on this week's episode of the show before the show, and it is the game show craze sweeping the nation. It is time for Name That Dude. This week, I am the dude knower. And Ben and Sam are the dude guessers. We have now done enough episodes of Name That Dude where I'm like, I don't know if we've done this dude. I don't think we have, but I think he may have come up in conversation about another dude maybe at one point. But anyway, he has cleared our very cursory Wikipedia investigation as to whether or not he's a terrible person, and he does not seem to be. And based on everything I knew about him when he was playing, he seemed like an awesome guy. So here we go. This dude was drafted by the then California Angels in the 25th round of the 1992 MLB June Amateur Draft. I'm not going to tell you what school he came from because I think that would give it away. He did not sign with the Angels, but he dropped 5 rounds. And the next year in 93 was drafted by the New York Mets in the 30th round of the 1993 MLB Draft. Sam, you just made a noise like you already know.
No, I don't.
Oh, if you knew from like, that dude who dropped 5 rounds after the Angels took him.
There was somebody I had in mind who played a lot with the Angels, and then you're like, I'm not going to give away his school.
Go I see. Wait, who was it?
I'll say it later.
Okay.
Is it a noted dirtbag?
Long Beach State or personally?
Yeah. No. Yeah, it's like
I meant Long Beach State.
Did anybody call this guy?
Believe me, we've had a few of those that we had to kick out and name that dude because they were actual dirtbags. Okay, so this guy signed with the New York Metropolitans, and he made his debut in the New York Penn League with the Pittsfield Mets in 1993. His age 21 season with the Pittsfield Mets in Pittsfield, Mass, close to Palma, Mass, where one Sam Dykstra is from. It's all close out there, Sam. What is it like? Oh, it's 40 miles. It's a real trek.
It's like an hour and a half.
All right.
It's 40 miles on Massachusetts. Right?
Okay, all right. It's the end of the Mass Pike on the western edge. Continue with the dudeness.
Okay. The next year, he was in the Class A Advanced Florida State League with the St. Lucie Mets. Following year, 1995, 2 stops. He was back in St. Lucie, and then he was up in Binghamton at AA. Season after that, he was in Binghamton and then up in Norfolk at AAA. He spent all of 1997 and 1998 in Norfolk before making his big league debut with the New York Mets in 1998. He was with the Mets from 98 through 2001. 2002, he played with 2 different teams, the Colorado Rockies and the Boston Red Sox. This is like a very closely tailored. If he had Phillies experience, it would be like, these 3 dudes have to know who this guy is because he played for all of our teams. And then following that, he was done, at least in terms of his big league time. 2003, he was a member of the Royals organization with AAA Omaha. He played a couple of winter ball seasons with Los Mochis in the Mexican Pacific Winter League. And then he was off to Japan, and he played from 2004 through 2009 with the Chiba Latte Marines, and retired in 2010 after that time in Nippon Professional Baseball. Fun fact, his manager while he was with the Marines was Bobby Valentine. But I get the sense that you might not know yet.
I think I do, actually.
I have a guess, but let's have Ben.
Because this is a guy that came up in some of our other conversations, but not in a dude context.
Yep, I think you know.
But is it Benny Agbayani?
That was going to be my guess. All right.
Benny Agbayani.
We should have written that down.
Legendary Hawaiian ball players of all time. Benny Agbayani, according to Wikipedia, so you know it's probably wrong, but he is of Filipino, Samoan, and Hawaiian descent. He attended Hawaiian Pacific University. That's where he was drafted out of. He also has 3 daughters who have been playing college softball like all across the country, which is super cool. Alea and Ilana, who have been playing, or 3 children, I should say, 2 daughters and 1 son. His son is committed to play baseball starting this spring at the University of South Carolina. His daughters have played softball at BYU and at Oklahoma, which is very cool. He was the head softball coach, was Benny Agbayani, at Iolani School in Honolulu. That's where both of his daughters went to school and played their high school softball. And and his son is off next season to play at South Carolina. I mean, that's no slouch. It's not like, his son got, he's committed to play at a small school in a random cold weather state. Like, his son's going from Hawaii to play SEC baseball at a national powerhouse. Benny Agbayani, what a guy. I loved Benny Agbayani back in the day.
Yeah, no, that's a good dude. And I did not know that about his kids. I mean,
yeah, me
3
neither.
Division I kids.
That's amazing.
That's incredible.
So cool. He was also the MVP of the inaugural Asia Series back in 2005, in which he and the Chiba Marines defeated the champions of South Korea, China, and Taiwan in baseball. They beat the Samsung Lions, a Korean team, in the championship, and Benny Agbayani was the MVP of that team. He won a Japan Series title with the Marines when they beat the Hanshin Tigers in 2005 in the Japan Series. He also, I remember my mom had a friend, they used to go to Hawaii back around this time. A friend had a house there. And my mom said that every night on the local news, they had like a dedicated Benny Agbayani segment. So it'd be like, here's what Benny Agbayani did, yesterday or this evening in the big leagues with the Mets or the Rockies or the Red Sox or whoever. I love that guy. If anybody out there knows Benny Agbayani, please text him and tell him that we're discussing him on this week's episode of the show before the show. And congrats to his kids, who all seem awesome.
Good dude. Good pick.
A good dude for this week's episode.
Actually, I was going to say that it's a good time to pick somebody who played for the Marines, because Roki Sasaki is in the news.
In the news.
And there is no news going on. I mean, like I say in the news, in that all baseball is kind of on tenterhooks of whether he's going to sign. Because he can't sign for the big bucks like Yamamoto did, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, last year, because he would be under the international signing rules.
Right. He's only played 3 seasons in Japan, I believe.
And he's under 25.
Yeah, and he's under 25. So he would be ineligible to get the big time contract. But a member of the Marines has not agreed to a contract yet with the Marines for next season. Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, Shohei Ohtani came over before he could get the big time money out of Japan as well. So it'll be interesting to see. Roki Sasaki, originally, there was some thought that he was just going to come over straight out of high school. He ended up signing and staying in Japan for a while, but somebody to keep an eye on, because he is, whether it's this season or in a couple seasons, he's the next big thing. He's going to be really fun to watch. That's it for this week's episode of the show before the show. As always, you can get in touch with us, podcast@milb.com, and feel free to send us your off-season questions and all the rest. And for Benjamin Hill, Sam Dykstra, Josh Jackson, and all the rest, my name is Tyler Mon. We're going to take at least a week off because I am headed out of the country. Sam is headed out of the country. So we'll be back with you. Don't fret, but not next week. So you have a week's reprieve from listening to the 3 of us, and you're welcome. So for all those dudes, I'm Tyler. We'll talk to you later.